Andy Austin here, back in my own attic. I'm going to play a little video. I don't know the coach at all who is presenting on this video. She's a very good speaker. I know she's got a lot of stuff on YouTube, and I had a quick Google, a lot of stuff on the internet. So clearly is somebody, I think, of some repute. I don't know her. I don't know the reputation. It's not her I'm interested in. It's actually the ethos that she is giving. And I've got to say, she speaks it very, very well. So it's probably one of the most articulate presentations of this particular ideology that is prevalent within therapy and coaching and all the alphabet therapies. I'm going to play the video and then have a little discussion about it, because I'm going to be interested in what viewers basically make of this. Do you agree with my conclusions, or do you disagree? I'm going to be interested in all answers across the spectrum. So let's just play the video.
So why do your words have so much power to affect your mental health, your physical health, your emotional health? Well, your mind must listen to everything you say, and your mind works out what's going on from the words you use. So if you say, this commute is killing me, my boss is driving me insane, my colleague makes me want to die, I'm dying under the pressure of these papers, my client is a nightmare from hell. Your mind has one job, and it's not to make you happy, it's to keep you alive on the planet. When you use very negative words, very scary words, words about, I can't cope, I'm falling apart, I'm losing the plot, I'm losing my shit, your mind really believes that you are losing it.
So now what we have is the position which, again, I came across, is prevalent in the NLP world, in particularly the hypnotherapy world, and in all New Age philosophies generally. It's something that also is prevalent within the mystical, magical world that I frequent as well. And it is essentially this. Your unconscious mind is constantly eavesdropping on your internal dialogue and also your external dialogue. And the words that you use powerfully affect your brain, your unconscious mind, your physiology, and how you live your life. And if you correct your language, then somehow your health and life will fall into alignment and be corrected too. And I've got to say, I think that's utter bunkum. It's absolutely ridiculous to say using the expression "I'm dying over here" somehow means I'm programming myself to die. If I say I'm really sick of this, well, that's going to program myself to get sick. I think this is complete nonsense, but it's so prevalent, it's become a truth to so many people. When I was first in the NLP world, I kept encountering people who kept saying, yeah, I'll try to do that. Oh no, I mustn't say try. I will do that. As though somehow that's going to make a difference. The person, just by correcting their language, doesn't mean they're actually going to be a person of action. They may well default to their previous position. And an awful lot of people, particularly the people who are highly narcissistic, and let's face it, the personal development world, the alphabet therapy world, really fosters narcissism to quite a considerable degree. The narcissistic people are perfect often with their speech. They say all the right things. They're social chameleons. They are able to manipulate other people. They're often able to con other people, initially at least. It's very hard to spot a narcissist early on when you first meet them. They've perfected the language, they've perfected the script, but there's a huge disconnect between their script and their lives. And that's obvious to anyone who's hung around narcissists. Just hang around certain trainers in the personal development alphabet therapy scene, and you'll see this in action. Now, this notion that if we use certain expressions that persuades our unconscious mind to program our body and our lives, I think is bogus. Let's face it, if the claim by hypnotherapists was correct, that everything that is spoken, everything that you hear influences you, then having the radio on to a chat show, or even listening to music, can be really bad for your health. Falling asleep in front of the TV can kill you. I mean, what happens if you fall asleep in front of something like The Sopranos? I mean, what happens if you watch consciously The Sopranos? All of that language, all of those words are going in. How is that any different from your internal dialogue? Because surely if the brain is just eavesdropping on language, it doesn't matter whether it's your language or somebody else's language. Now, what these coaches seem to miss is the three linguistic distinctions. And again, this is not very prevalent within people who talk about language as a tool for therapy and for healing. I mean, for God's sake, somehow you can heal cancer. Just don't use the word cancer. And if you use the word cancer, you're going to get cancer. This is the thing. There's 3 linguistic categories. There's others. These are just the 3 I'll mention today. Some people are speaking figuratively. Basically, they don't mean what they say. If you want to see a figurative speaker in action, just look at any video footage of someone like, say, Donald Trump speaking, or me 10 years ago. Essentially, Trump is a highly figurative communicator. He doesn't mean literally what he says. He's being figurative. Now, of course, the media, who obviously hate him, will interpret what he says literally. And so we have a figurative speaker being interpreted literally. Therefore, he's taken seriously at a literal level when actually he's being figurative. Meanwhile, of course, his fans listen to him figuratively, but don't take him literally, but they take him seriously. So we have figurative speaking and literal speaking. Figurative is when the person is just using lots of figures of speech, and the figures they use aren't necessarily connected to reality. There's millions of them out there, that kind of stuff. The literal speakers, they tend to mean what they say, and there's a direct relationship between what they say and the accuracy and what is being reported upon. Now, literal speakers hear figurative speakers and assume they're always exaggerating and always lying. And why do you say that? That never happened, but they're being figurative. Because the literal speaker will naturally assume the figurative speaker is being literal. Meanwhile, the figurative speaker may not believe anything you actually say if you're a literal speaker, because they assume you're being figurative. And so now, if you have 2 people married, a figurative speaker and a literal speaker, fun will follow, as they both try and interpret each other through their own point of reference. Then you also have the metaphorical speaker. You want a metaphorical speaker? Just listen to anything by Boris Johnson. Now, what he's able to do is, by speaking metaphorically, he can constantly change the agenda. And so now the literal speaker and the figurative speaker can spot the liar. Simply because with metaphor, you can go, no, that's not what I meant. What I meant was this. And you change the meaning behind the ambiguous metaphor that's delivered. And the other one is, when caught out in a lie, the person says, well, I was just being metaphorical. Just like the figurative speaker can never be caught out lying, because they go, well, I'm just being figurative. So the literal speaker is the only one who has a direct relationship. Now, the assumption, of course, is that the unconscious mind, if there is even such a thing as the unconscious mind, the human brain hears all language literally, and it is able to translate the literal language into a chemical reaction in the body. And this goes both ways. So we think ourselves sick. Don't say the C word. In days of old, people wouldn't dare say the word cancer lest they actually create it. This comes from religion, by the way, where you have to be guarded with your speech, because to use the wrong words can be catastrophic. And so largely what we're seeing is a religiosity around language, but also linguistic control of self and of others. The brain doesn't necessarily have the capacity to take literal communication and translate it into biological function. So the therapists and the coaches will say that can make you ill. The hypnotists and some of the NLPers, not all, but some, will say, and you can use those words to heal. Really? I'd love to see the evidence for this. Because whenever I see, and there's plenty of them online, there's plenty of them on YouTube, claiming to be able to heal, they have really good stories. Lots of really, really good stories. Yeah, but where's the patient? Where are the biometric markers, which can easily be measured, to actually demonstrate that this is actually happening? There's an abundance. I was having a little rant at the weekend. I was having a look at some people's videos who claim to have healed cancer themselves. I had cancer and now I'm healed. Not me. That's what they were saying in the videos. And largely they're thanking whatever the process is. Whatever the process they went to, whether it was NLP or EMDR or whatever alphabet therapy. They're now healed. An essential part of the narrative is the doctors had given up, or the doctors didn't know what they were doing, or the doctors were making me sicker, or all 3 of those. And then the classic line they all love to say, the doctors were amazed. They'd never seen anything like this before. Their jaw hit the floor. They were stunned. No, they weren't. I've worked enough years in hospitals to have been around cases where people either have spontaneous remissions or do extremely well and recover against what we would expect, and everyone is nothing but delighted for that person. It happens every single week. It's a constant experience. But to that individual trainer, of course, they have to make themselves special, both with their unique disease and the magic healing they brought to it. What they don't mention is the surgery, the chemotherapy, the radiotherapy, and all the hospital treatment they had, which basically was successful. They don't tell you that part. So can words literally heal people? Can words literally make people sick because we use the wrong idiomatic phrases, metaphorical phrases, or figurative phrases, or even literal? Will those things make people sick? Does that grant the therapist or coach the power to heal? I say absolutely not. It's total bunkum. And it doesn't matter how much people cite, yes, but there's studies that show when people are stressed, it affects their immune markers. You can take blood tests and you can see the immune cells it's a real problem when people get sick because when people are stressed, they're more prone to vulnerable and viruses and stuff. And basically, yeah, so does that mean internal dialogue makes people sick? And does that mean by alleviating stress, you're going to change those biometric markers and heal the person? Because that's largely how these things get interpreted. Because we can measure negative impacts of stress upon the body, therefore somehow alleviating stress bolsters the immune system and can heal. Show me the evidence. I would love to see the evidence. And anyone who cites Deepak Chopra, that's not evidence. That's religion, much like many of the trainers and the studies that are reported, which are usually an incestuous reporting. Somebody tells a story that somebody else told, that somebody else told, that somebody else told, that somebody else told. There is a certain famous trainer doing the rounds with a story of healing a person from a neurological condition. And I've heard that story been repeated to me so many times over the years. I know the patient. That's all I can tell you. I know the person's name. They never know the person's name, including the bloody therapist that claims to have healed them. I bet that therapist, trainer, doesn't know the patient's name. I do, because I was the one that sent them there in the first place. And let's just say the stories that everyone is repeating, they believe the story. They've never asked for the evidence. I know the patient, and I can tell you it's a false story. 100% false. But, who am I? I just ruin the party. As always, I don't want any personal comments about the video that I showed, only the principle that is being discussed. I've put a link in the description. I'll also pin it in the comments. So if anyone anybody wants to watch the full video for context, please do. You might want to do that before commenting. And I'll see you soon.